I'm Nico Valdivia Hennig. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of California, Riverside. I'm co-founder at Niebla Games, an indie video game studio based in Valparaíso, Chile. This presentation is called Guaman Poma in Interactive Form, Notes from a Research Creation Practice. So all of you are already familiar with Guaman Poma. I just wanted to share that when I encountered this fascinating, like historical figure and his amazing work, like with 1,000 pages and 400 hand-drawn illustrations, I felt an urgency to share it with the world, and the way that I can do it is through interactive media. So drawing from the colonial perspective, also inspired by Linda Tuiwai Smith and her decolonizing methodologies, and Silvia Rivera Cusicanqui's readings on Guaman Poma's work, taking the concepts of Hypnida as the future past and how we can also project Guaman's Poma and the new chronicle from the past to the present and to the future, and the Cheje concept for spotted, recognizing the starting contradictions in a colonial setting, and thinking and reading Guaman as a Cheje figure as proposed by Silvia Rivera Cusicanqui. I decided to create, through this research creation process, this Hawk and Puma video game, a game about Guaman Poma. It's an homage and also as a way to make an outreach of Guaman's Poma's work. This video game has been exhibited in international game art festivals and video game festivals in Europe, Latin America, in the US. And for this research creation process, I went back to materiality, on one hand, ink, and thinking on the colonial legacy of this materiality, how a man was deceived to sign contracts and work as a facilitator for dispossession through legal devices to indigenous people, and how Woman takes that ink as a form of resistance to write his letter to the King Philip III. Weaving as a practice that Woman drew and wrote extensively about, understanding the importance that this practice have till this date for the Andean cultures to keep communities together, and pixels, not only as a projected light, but also these small cells that allow us to have these screens everywhere, and how, if we trace how the materials inside these small cells that project the pixels have colonial power dynamics from one regions to others. Also, we have a knowledge production opportunity through research creation when we are thinking on playing with ideas. On one hand, while making this project, I found a man figure with Niccolo Machiavelli. And when I put these two figures together, first I felt a curiosity because on one hand, Machiavelli died only a few years before Woman's probable birth. Okay, so that's at least interesting. But then when reading both together, it's like both wrote about power, good governance, religion, and sovereignty. Guaman wrote to the King Philip III of Spain, while Niccolo Machiavelli to Lorenzo de' Medici or the Prince of Florence, and both are emblematic figures of major historical, political, and cultural transitions, colonization and the Renaissance, and there's no Renaissance without colonization. So in the game, I decided to put Guaman as the main figure, the protagonist of the story, and having the figure of Niccolo Machiavelli as Maki, as a character that depicts like a Western point of view of power, and having Guaman as the protagonist and this Western conception of power, questioning his ways, his motives, his actions through this spectral figure. We have Guaman and we have Maki in this encounter. I use some open source tools. I use Bitsy. It's an awesome tool, so please go and use it. And since it's open source, I use tools made by the community to be able to take Guaman's illustrations and turn them into playable pixels. Also, I use Signal, a MIDI composer, to compose this small song or loop inspired and as an homage to Woman. I also use, of course, the digital archive, and there's a curiosity because probably many of you explored Woman archive before 2024. It was a terrible website from the 90s, or like a 90s aesthetic with some issues when exploring, and now we have this updated site. It's not perfect, but it's much better. And thanks, and Hawk and Puma, we had a collaboration with Jacob from the Royal Danish Library, and I'm proud to say that Hawk and Puma was a catalyst to make this update too, and it's available on the resources and bibliography in case that you want to check the game. Is for this game, we had a collaboration with Kenneth Chavez Caguana, with Cesar Sicos Yucra, or Ispu and Jesse Sicos Yucra. Thanks to a collaboration with them, they're part of the Ñaupañan community in the Sacred Valley of the Incas in Pisac. We started collaborating with them to be able to launch the game in English, in Quechua, and in Spanish, which is great because there's no many games in Quechua out there. And this became a further collaboration through the Causi Causai Andean School. We are doing some game development workshops with the community there. We're teaching youth to create video games using these minimal and accessible tools. So we had this pilot project called Andean Futures, where they made from abstract experiences from some more complex ones that they were able to do and to tell personal stories, and also some like delving with local culture, like some wanted to share about the Apus and this kinship relationship for the community with the hills or the sun, the Intihuatana, the Amaru, the cosmic serpent, the Chacana, the crossing the sky, etc., like or llamas, alpacas, and they wanted to use this tool to talk about their stories.